Hello, my name is Professor Martin Wong. I'm a clinical professor from the Jockey Club School of Public Health and Primary Care of the Faculty of Medicine of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Today, the topic is global, regional, and time trend prevalence of central obesity. And this is a systematic review and meta-analysis. So I wish to thank the 5th edition of Global Webinar on Endocrinology and Diabetes. And the chairman has actually very kindly invited my participation. And I wish to express my gratitude to the chairperson. So to declare, the findings of this study have been published in the European Journal of Epidemiology in the year 2020. So to start off with, we understand central obesity is a major health challenge. It has been defined by the World Health Organization as a waist circumference of more than 94 centimeters for males and more than 80 centimeters for females. And the International Diabetes Federations also take into consideration the ethnic difference, where for males it's more than 90 centimeters, and for females it's more than 80 centimeters for Asian populations. And because of physical inactivity and unhealthy dietary habits, these two contributors often result in central obesity. Because central obesity is a risk factor for many diseases, it exerted a substantial financial burden on our healthcare system in terms of utilization of health services, outpatient clinics, emergency departments, etc. So it is a global problem which should not be neglected. So these complications include cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, hypertension, different types of cancers, including colorectal and breast cancer. And there are a number of coexisting conditions, including high blood lipid levels, and also depression, and also hip fracture. So these conditions shall not be disregarded. So central obesity is in fact very important, as a recent study reported that waist circumference had a higher relative integrated discrimination index than body mass index in both men and women. And also the association between waist circumference and cardiovascular risk remains significant after controlling for these factors. So therefore, if we determine the regional and time trend prevalence of central obesity, this could inform resource allocation and policy making so as to reduce its disease burden via a number of means, like public health measures, including health education, screening, and early intervention. However, there's a current knowledge gap which has been unaddressed. The reported prevalence of central obesity in existing literature may be affected by where the study has been performed. For example, it may differ according to geographical region, the place of residence and the study time period, and also the different characteristic of the population group study, including different age range, proportion of different genders, race, and the sampling method, as well as the diagnostic criteria to define central obesity. So therefore, a systematic review is needed to have comprehensive examination of central obesity as a global disease burden. So the objectives of this study is to perform a systematic review and meta-analysis of the worldwide and time trend prevalence of central obesity using Medline and EM-based, where we search for population-based and epidemiological studies that reported the prevalence of central obesity. We adopted a predetermined search strategy to search literature for EM-based Medline, which we reported the quality of the studies under MOOSE, which is one of the authoritative guidelines. So we also established a multidisciplinary group who conducted the meta-analysis led by the different authors with one author as a reviewer. And consensus was reached by referral to a third reviewer then, and if there has been a disagreement. And all the return citations were screened by title and abstract, followed by full text if relevant. So we are interested in studies that examine the prevalence of central obesity using an observational design which reported original data. And the citations were then eligible for full text screening. So only population-based studies were reviewed as we wish to have a prevalence figure. And also, we examine studies that involve all residents in a specific region as a sampling frame, so that it could be even more representative of that particular region. So we extracted data, including basic information from individual studies, like the name of first author, year of publication, study time period, etc., and listed in table form. And also the relevant information was extracted to estimate prevalence according to different subgroups. The quality of each included citation, we use modified Newcastle-Ottawa Quality Assessment Scale, or what we call NOS, to assess their quality. A systematic and analytical method is used to compute what we call the pooled prevalence weight of central obesity. And we use a starter command, which is called MetaProp. And this software has been very commonly used among the different researchers to perform meta-analysis of weights, so that the pool estimates can generate score test-based confidence intervals. And we also use the Freeman two-key double Gaussian transformation methodology to stabilize the variances using random effect models. And heterogeneity across the different studies was computed based on the Cochrane's Q-test and the chi-square statistics. So we also performed subgroup analysis. We examined the temporal trends of the prevalence of central obesity in the different age and gender groups. And also we plotted a crowpath map showing the different prevalence weight of central obesity in the different countries. Also, to identify potential effects of confounders or modifiers, we performed univariate and multivariate multi-regression analysis, meta-regression analysis, and also performed sensitivity analysis by omitting one study at a time, which then generate the pooled estimates and which could be compared with the original estimates to see whether the results are stable. And we use Starter version 14 for statistical analysis and R version 3.3.2 for graphic compositions. So this is a crowpath map showing the prevalence of central obesity according to country. As we can show here, there are a lot of unavailable data in Africa and parts of South America, and also in the Eastern Asia and also Australia. And then the highest we could actually appreciate that is actually around the American continent, some in the Asian continents as well. And out of 29,000 citations identified from literature search, we eventually obtained 288 studies in 259 articles included in a systematic review, and among which 67.2%, that means 174 citations, were judged to have high quality in both patient definition and also the data representativeness. And therefore, we have included all these 174 citations in our analysis. So the prevalence of central obesity according to age, sex, place, criteria, and race was shown in this forest plot. As we can see here, the older individuals, they have a higher prevalence of central obesity. Female got higher weights. We've used the WHO criteria, it seems to be higher. And also Caucasians had higher weights as compared to Asians. And also we examined the different regions. And as you can see here, the Western region as compared to South Central and Southeastern regions had a higher prevalence weight, and also the income of the countries. So high income countries got a higher prevalence as compared to the lower income countries. And for the time trend, no matter for males, females, or older or younger individuals, we can see over time there's been a shift in terms of the prevalence rate of central obesity across time. So we have higher and higher weights of central obesity in terms of prevalence. So in summary, the overall prevalence of central obesity was found to be 41.5%, with a 95% confidence interval being 39.9 to 33.2%. So this rising prevalence in terms of the overall prevalence not only occur in adults, but more impressively in young adults and male individuals. And also a higher prevalence was also found in older subjects, females, urban people living in urban regions, Caucasian populations, and people with high income countries. So how are we going to explain the findings? So obviously, the increase in prevalence of central obesity since the 1990s increased from 31.3% to 48.3%. And there are a number of explanations. For instance, this could be due to economic development and urbanization. So, for example, an unfavorable change in the different habits, like dietary habits, consuming high-calorie foods and sweetened beverages, physical activity in terms of having more sedentary behavior, and also stress, together with increase in cortisol secretion. These could be factors which could explain the increase. Also, we can see people who are older than 40 years, they got twice higher risks as compared to younger adults aged 15 to 40. And the percentage is around 48 versus 23.8%. So this could be because of basal metabolic weight of the adult being lower, and the physical activity level might not be as high as younger individuals, which could then explain the findings. So this would be very important to realize that the central obesity is now growing in terms of its global burden across time. So our study also got some limitations which should be addressed. For example, the degree of heterogeneity in study was large. The I-square is more than 98%. And the included studies had a relatively long time span from 1985 to 2014, and it adopted different sampling methods with a huge between-study variation in sample size and age range. The criteria have been relatively inconsistently used in different studies, and thus making direct comparison of the findings a bit challenging. Yet additional sensitivity analysis has shown the distribution of definition used was mostly balanced between the groups. And lastly, it's difficult to compare the prevalence trends across populations at different times, and therefore this phenomenon may limit the generalizability of the results to the other settings. So in conclusion, I think it's very important for us and also the government and health organizations to devise and implement some preventive measures and early interventions to tackle its rising threat. For example, through health education, through screening of chronic diseases, through methods which have been proven by evidence to be effective and implemented in the community, all these would be recommended. We also recommend measures at individual and public health levels targeted at the high-risk groups, such as Caucasians or African older adults and females, who may represent cost-effective means to control its growing burden. So the measures should also be tailored for individual country or population, because the epidemiology of central obesity could vary between countries or populations. So with this, thank you very much once again for the very kind invitation of the chairman of the conference, and I wish to say thank you to you all. And if there are any questions, that would be very welcome. Thank you very much.